have pattern observation questions. These questions can be categorized into 4 main types. First, those with a constant difference. Second, those involving perfect squares. And third, those related to consecutive numbers. The last one, those requiring you to count in gaps of 2. In our analysis of the 2022 exam papers, we observed that many questions involved a combination of at least 2 or more of these 4 types. Therefore, we have decided to include all pattern observation questions under one strategy. This accounts for the significant increase in the ranking of pattern observation questions as compared to 2022, where we only indicated one type out of the 4, which was those with a constant difference. If you observe the pattern for the number of shaded squares, you will see a constant difference in each figure number. So from 9 to 14, you can observe that it increased by 5. From 14 to 19, it increased by 5 as well. And from 19 to 24, it also increased by 5. So we can easily predict what is the number of shaded squares for figure number 5 by simply adding 5 to 24, and that gives us an answer of 29. And then for the second column of the number of unshaded squares, we did not observe the numbers increasing by a constant difference like the previous one over here. But if you look closely, you will spot another pattern. If we start by looking at 2, you can observe that 2 can be expressed as a product of 2 consecutive numbers, 1 multiplied by 2, and for 6 is 2 multiplied by 3, and for 12 is 3 multiplied by 4. So we can also easily predict the next pattern for figure number 5, which is 4 multiplied by 5, and that gives us an answer of 20. So the answer for part A, for the shaded number of squares, is 29, and for the number of unshaded squares is 20. When you look at the last column over here, can you see a set of special numbers? 9 comes from 3 times 3, and 16 comes from 4 times 4, and 25 comes from 5 times 5, 36 comes from 6 times 6, and so on. These numbers here are square numbers. Let's look at the square number with relation to the figure number. So when it's figure 1, we have 3 times 3. And when it's figure 2, we have 4 times 4. And when it's figure 3, it's 5 times 5. Did you observe that the number over here is always 2 more than the figure number that it's representing? So if we are finding the total number of squares for figure 11, we will need to add 2 to figure 11, and that gives us 13. And then we can use 13 to multiply by 13. So we get the answer to be 169. So the answer for part B is 169 squares for figure 11. And now for part C, to find out which figure number has 134 shaded squares. So if we recap on the pattern for the number of shaded squares, it is increasing by a constant difference of 5. So what we can do is we can compare the first number, which is 9, with the number that you want to find, 134 squares. From 9 to 134, you will need to increase by 125. And since we know that each gap increases by 5, we can find out how many times, how many groups of 5 will make up the 125. By using 125 to divide by 5, we will get 25 groups of 5. And this 25 groups of 5 actually represents the 25 gaps. So as what I've mentioned in class, 25 gaps represent figure number 26. So figure number 26 is the one that has 134 squares. So the answer for part C is figure number 26. As for the fourth strategy, we have fraction of a ratio. This strategy did not appear in as many school exam papers in 2022, which is why it has experienced a slight dip in its ranking. However, it is important to note that fraction of a ratio has appeared in the PSLE paper for the 4th consecutive time. As we mentioned in 2022, this strategy is relatively straightforward to apply, even for a 4-mark question like this one presented here. As we dive into this question, you will see just how straightforward it is to secure 4 marks for this question. For this question from Nanhua Prelim 2022, we will start by writing the ratio first. The ratio of the number of apples to the number of pears in the supermarket is 5 units is to 4 units. And we are given that 1/3 of the apples were rotten. Now, since we know that the number of apples is represented by the 5 units, we can find out what is 1/3 of the apples, which is 1/3 of 5 units, by using 1/3 to multiply by 5, and that gives us 1 2/3 units. So this 1 2/3 units represents the number of apples which were rotten and they were thrown away. So we're going to indicate that in our ratio by writing minus 1 2/3 units. And then in the end, the number of units left for the apples will be 5 minus 1 2/3 unit, and that gives you 3 1/3 unit. Now, we were also given the information that 84 pears were rotten and thrown away. So we can indicate that in our ratio as well by writing minus 84. The last information that we're given is that in the end, there was an equal number of pears and apples left. As you can see, the apples left with 3 1/3 unit, so the pears will also be left with 3 1/3 unit. If you compare the before ratio of the pears, 4 units, with the ending ratio of the pears, which is 3 1/3 unit, you will be able to find out how many units is represented by the 84. So we can use 4 unit to take away 3 1/3 unit, and that gives us 2/3 units. And 2/3 units is equivalent to that 84 that were thrown away. And you can find your 1 unit by using 84 to divide by 2/3. And that gives you an answer of 126. And then now we can solve the question, how many apples were there at first? The apples at first refers to the 5 units, and we can find 5 units easily by using 126 to multiply by 5. And that gives us an answer of 630. So the answer to this question is 630 apples at first. For the second strategy, we have counting by sets. This strategy has maintained its position from 2022. It's also worth noting that counting by sets is a strategy with a high likelihood of appearing in the PSLE, as it has featured in nearly every year's examination. In this question here, buns are sold at 5 for $4 and muffins are sold at 2 for $3. So let's write a statement to represent these two information. So we can write 5 buns equivalent to $4, and for 2 muffins it's equivalent to $3. Now, Gerald spent the same amount of money on some buns and some muffins. So what we're going to do here is that we are going to change the $4 and the $3 to be the same. So to do so, we will need to find the lowest common multiple of 4 and 3. So that will be 12. And to get 12, we need to multiply this by 3. And to get 12 on this side, we need to multiply this by 4. And so we will get 15 buns to be equivalent to $12. And 8 muffins to be equivalent to $12. The question mentioned that there were 84 more buns than muffins. But when we compare the number of buns here and the number of muffins here, do we get a difference of 84? 15 take away 8 gives us 7. So as you can see here, this 7 is not equivalent to the 84 that the question mentioned yet. So this means that these two values that we have gotten over here and here are not the actual values. So we can see the 7 here as the difference in one set. So since we need to get a total difference of 84, we can use 84 to divide by 7, and that gives us 12. And this 12 will be the number of sets. The question wants you to find how much is spent on the muffins. So by looking at this is our one set. One set gives us $12 over here. So for 12 sets, we will use 12 sets to multiply by the $12 per set, and that gives us $144. And so the answer for the amount of money that's spent on the muffins is $144. Moving on to the sixth strategy, we have Connect Group. This strategy has climbed one rank from 7th in 2022 to 6th in 2023. Connect Group is a relatively straightforward strategy on its own, and it is also common to see it applied in conjunction with another strategy such as what remains the same, sets ratio within a question. Now let's explore how we can use Connect Group in this PSLE question from 2021. As per our standard practice, we need to represent the information here in either ratio, model, or statement. So in this case, we will choose to represent the information in ratio. Now, let's look at this part of the question. 1/4 of them played football. So we can represent this in ratio by indicating that 1 unit belongs to those who played football, and 4 units refers to the total, which is represented by football, basketball, and handball. Now, since the total is 4 units, we can also find out an extra information from this ratio here by using 4 to take away 1, and that will give us the number of units for those playing basketball and handball, and we get 3. And for the next fraction of 1/3, we can represent handball to basketball to be 1:3. Can you identify the connection between these two ratios? It's your H plus B, which is your handball plus basketball. It's the same as this group over here. So this is 4 units. By using 1 to add the 3, we get 4. Since these two ratios here are talking about the same spot, we can make them the same by using 3 to multiply by 4 and 4 to multiply by 3. And that gives us 4 to 16 to 12 here, and 3 to 9 to 12 here. And remember to write out your summary ratio after connecting them. You will be able to get that H to B to F ratio to be 3 to 9 to 4. Now from the graph, we can see that the shortest bar will correspond to the smallest value here, which is handball. So we are going to write H to represent handball. For the second shortest one, we have football, and we're going to write F here to represent football. And the one with the highest bar is corresponding to the 9 units, which is basketball. So this is the answer for part A. The shortest one, H, handball. The longest one is basketball, and the second one is football. And now for part B, we can simply just box up the 2 keywords in the question over here, and we will be able to find out the answer of the fraction of the students who played handball to be 3 out of 16.